Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and technically doing a Labrynth deck profile. So I'm really excited to speak guys because we finally have Big Welcome Labrynth, which takes this deck to a whole new level. I have all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys, and I've changed up this deck a lot since the last time I profiled it, and I'm super excited to show you guys this list. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name skipped in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle. This card is a definite 3 of in the deck, and she's the main boss monster that we're going to be summoning in this build. And she has the ability that while you control a set card, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is already an absolutely insane effect, but she also has the ability if a Labrynth card or effect of a normal trap card was activated this turn, except another copy of this card, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position, which will get you a 3000 attack point monster just instantly on the field. She also has the ability that when a normal trap card is activated, quick effect, you can set one normal trap card with a different name directly from your deck, which is insanely powerful to just instantly get the trap card that you need on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle. This card is still a 1 of in the deck, but I only feel like you need a single copy of her in this particular build. She's great to summon to your side of the field, but usually we're just going for our copies of Lady Labrynth. We then play 3 copies of Ariana. Ariana is the main normal summon that we have in this deck, and this card is absolutely crazy as a 3 of in this particular build. You see, this card is normal or special summon, you get to add a Labrynth card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, essentially making this card the Stratos of the deck. And if another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, except during the damage step, you can draw a card, then you can apply this effect that you can basically use the ability that from your hand either special summon one Fiend monster or set a spell or trap card, which is a great effect to be able to use with this card. We then play a single copy of Ku-Klok. Ku-Klok is a great combo piece in the deck, and this card is just really good in this particular build to be able to search off your copy of Ariana, because it has the ability that quick effect, you can discard this card, and this turn, you can activate one normal trap card that was set this turn, which is a really powerful effect to be able to use with this card, especially if we have one of our copies of our Big Welcome Labrynth or Welcome Labrynth already in our hand, which is just really good to instantly get our copy of our Lady Labrynth on our side of the field with that effect. We then play 2 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Lord of the Heavenly Prison is still a really awesome card in this deck because this card just gives you so much protection by just revealing it in your hand. The majority of the time in this deck, I don't even summon Lord of the Heavenly Prison, I just reveal it to protect my back row. We then play 3 copies of Lava Golem. Lava Golem is a great main in this particular deck because it's really good to be able to out your opponent's field and then bounce this card back to hand with cards like your copies of Compulse, and we only have 3 normal summons in this deck, so the copies of Lava Golem can help you break your opponent's board because you don't really normal summon in this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Labrynth. I'm still on 1 copy of this card in this particular build. I have considered dropping this card out of the deck, but I still really like this card as a 1 of in this particular build because if you activate a set Welcome Labrynth normal trap, then you can add the additional effect to the card's effect that you also after that destroy 1 card on the field, which is just a really good effect. And it also has the ability if you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap card except during the damage step, then you can special summon a Fiend monster from your hand or graveyard, which is a pretty good effect. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance just works extremely well in this deck over your copies of, say, Pot of Prosperity, because this card is going to get you a draw 2, where Prosperity is just going to let you add a card to hand. Yes, it does actually banish random cards, which is a little bit of a downside, but you're not really going into the extra deck all that much in this particular build. You're just looking for the next trap card to be able to go off against the opponent. So we're not too worried about the extra deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a lot, and I mean a lot of trap cards. So let's get straight on into them. So we're going to start off with 3 copies of Big Welcome Labrynth, which we finally have in the TCG. I'm so excited for this card. This card is super powerful. It lets you special summon a Labrynth monster from your hand deck or graveyard. Then return one monster that you control to your hand, which is just a awesome effect to be able to use to instantly get to our really powerful monsters by using this card. It also has the ability you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target a fiend monster that you control, or if you control a level 8 or higher fiend monster, then you can target one card that your opponent controls instead and return that card to the hand, which is a great double use out of this card. We then play 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth. Welcome Labrynth is still a definite 3 on the deck, so it lets you special summon a Labrynth monster from your deck. Also, until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the deck or extra deck except fiend monsters, which is not that big of a deal because, again, we're not summoning from the extra deck all that often anyways. But this card is a really awesome 3 of in this particular build. And if a monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect while this card's in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can set this card back to your side of the field, which is super powerful to be able to use this card over and over again. We then play 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. This card is a definite 3 of in this particular build to be able to just bounce a monster off the field back to the player's hand, especially when we give our opponent a copy of Lava Golem and we can bounce it back to our hand and use it again, which is just super cool to be able to do. We then play 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. This card basically just says no to your opponent and basically stops them from playing the game, which is really cool, and locking them out of an entire extra deck mechanic or ritual summoning, which is just super cool. The only thing that this can't stop is link summoning, but that is just really good to be able to just call Synchro, Fusion, XZ, or Pendulum against the opponent, or even Ritual to stop them from summoning or activating those effects this turn, which is just super cool. We then play 2 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. Dogmatic Punishment is really good as a 2 of in this deck because we don't summon from the extra deck all that often, and it just gives you a pop on a face-up monster your opponent controls while also sending a card from our extra deck to the graveyard, which is really good for this particular deck to do, which can get us a double pop or a draw or even some other really powerful effects. We then play a single copy of Trap Trick. Trap Trick is really good in this particular deck because it is searchable with our copies of Our Lady Labrynth, which is just super cool to be able to just instantly get to our copy of Trap Trick and get to the exact trap that we need with this card. It's just a really good 1 of in this deck. We then play 2 copies of Dorama Cannon. This card is really good against Kashtira, which is why I'm playing this card as a 2 of in this particular build, because it changes as many monsters on the field as possible to face down defense position. Then, if either player controls a face-up monster, they must send them to the graveyard so they don't control a face-up monster, which is not that big of a deal for us, but it can really stop the opponent when we flip their copies of their monsters face down. We then play 3 copies of Skill Drain. Skill Drain really hurts the opponent, but it doesn't hurt us all that often, which is really good because a lot of our monsters actually activate in the hand to special summon themselves to our side of the field. And this card is really good, especially if we go first. We can do all of our plays on the very first turn and then basically set this card to our side of the field, which is just really good, and then turn off all monster effects on the field, which is just really nice. This card really stops the opponent and is a definite 3 of in this build. I've won so many games because of this card. We then play 3 copies of Goes in Match. Goes in Match is really good because we're basically only going to control in this deck dark monsters. So this card is really good to lock down the opponent, especially if they have 2 monsters on their side of the field and you basically give them a Lava Golem and then flip this up. They can only control fire. So this card is really good in this particular build to be able to lock down the opponent while it pretty much does nothing to us. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Elder Entity Nist. Elder Entity Nist is a really good dogmatic punishment target. Since we are playing Pot of Extravagance in this build, we're going to basically have just a bunch of toolbox cards in this particular deck for our copies of dogmatic punishment. We do have a couple of cards that we're summoning, but for the majority of it, we're just basically playing dogmatic punishment targets. But Elder Entity Nist is really good to be able to send to the graveyard all of dogmatic punishment to give you a pop on the field. We then play 2 copies of Garura. Garura is really good, but I'm only playing 2 copies of it in this build, because while it does give us a draw, if we do activate our copy of Pot of Extravagance, we cannot draw that turn, which is why I just play 2 copies of Garura. We then play a single copy of Dragon Master Knight. You can play any 5,000 attack point monster in this particular position, but I like Dragon Master Knight for the style points. You can play 5-headed dragon, you can play the 5-headed link dragon, you can play any card that has 5,000 attack points that you can send to the graveyard off of Dogmatic Punishment to be able to use the effect to pop any monster that you want, basically, because as long as it has 5,000 or less, you can use Dogmatic Punishment on it, which is really cool. We then play 2 copies of the Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus is a great Dogmatic Punishment target because it basically has the ability, if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it, target a card your opponent controls, and shuffle it into the deck, which is just super good. We then play 2 copies of Mirror Logic. Mirror Logic is really good as a Dogmatic Punishment target in this particular deck. It has the ability, if it touches the graveyard, it has the ability to negate the effect, target one face-up card on the field, and negate its effects until the end of this turn, which is a great effect to turn off cards that you want to turn off, and also stop the opponent and use Dogmatic Punishment as a negate, which is just really good. We then play 2 copies of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is a really good 2 in the deck that we do make every so often to be able to send a card to the graveyard off our opponent's side of the field. It's a really good 2 in the deck, but you only need 2 copies of this card. We then play a single copy of the Dark Charmer. This is just in case they try and Ibly lock us. This card is just really good as a 1-of in the deck. We then play a single copy of the Donner for Hire. This card is a great 1-of in the deck to be able to outcast Tira. I really like this card as a 1-of in this particular build because it basically works like a copy of Breaksword. You target a monster for hire that you control and a monster that your opponent controls and destroy them, which is a pretty good effect. We then also play a single copy of Mudracker from the Underworld. This card is just good in any Fiend deck, and so I play this card as a 1-of in the build. Plus, it is a Fiend monster, so even if you're locked into Fiends, you can still summon out this card, and it's basically a Monster Reborn, which is really good. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have not played Labrynth yet, I highly recommend it. This deck is turning into the ultimate trap deck and one of my favorite decks to actually play that is a trap deck, and it's going to be really, really good in this coming format. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.